Yeah, really good question. So the question is, in my own spiritual practices or in the sacred year, for example, was there intentionality in the structuring of the day or intentionality of the structuring of the year? And the answer to that is absolutely. I find for myself, for example, that if I don't begin my day in silence, that silence will not come into the day at all, because it's so easy to get caught up and wrapped up into the noise and into both creating the noise and then reacting and responding to the noise. That sort of distinction between what is important and what is urgent. I believe silence is important, very important in my life. I've come to believe that, and thus fostering it and cultivating it is a necessary and an important thing. Because if I don't do that early on in the day, then I'm going to be caught up in the urgent noise that I have to deal with for the rest of the day, and that silence will rarely come into my day at that point. So yes, very much so there's an intentionality to that. And for example, one of the other spiritual practices that I was engaging and still am engaging, but engaging particularly during the sacred year, was the spiritual practice of fasting, a spiritual practice of regularly fasting. Now, obviously there are medical considerations to go along with fasting, and there are personal considerations to go along with fasting. We can fast with many different kinds of things, whether it's media consumption or it's social media or it's buying new things, buying new clothes. There are many different ways to fast. I chose to fast from food and from food for breakfast and for lunch on Mondays. So I began my work week, in a sense, in a posture of being hungry, in a posture of longing, and in a posture of desiring, of deep desire. So being hungry, I think, very much is connected to a deep desire, a deepening desire. And one of the most astonishing things that I've found in the spiritual practice of fasting is that it actually dramatically increased my appreciation of food. It dramatically increased my appreciation of nourishment, right? Connecting this to the spiritual practice of simplicity, I did a month-long, during the month of Lent, during the period of Lent, fast of living on $2 a day. So I was eating on $2 a day because of the billions of people in our world who have to subsist on $2 a day, trying to enter into that in some sort of way. But simplicity and fasting and trying to survive on what $2 a day of food will actually buy you, which is not much. A little bit of plain oatmeal in the morning, a little bit of beans and rice and a quarter of an avocado at lunch, and a little bit of beans and rice and a quarter of an avocado in the evening, and that's about it. No spices, no flavors, because those are such expensive commodities. So doing that, I tell you what, when that was finished, and I had the chance to walk into a friend's birthday party and feast, I think that's one of the most astonishing aspects of what these spiritual practices do, is that they condition us in a particular way, and fasting actually increases delight. Abstaining from something actually increases our capacity for joy. It's not that food is bad. It's not that we should rescind it or send it away. It's that actually how God has built and constructed these spiritual practices to work is that when we do something like fasting, we cease from eating for a little bit. It's not that it decreases our appreciation of those good things. It actually increases our appreciation of those good things. So for example, when Sam and I were on the streets, I mean, the best drink of water that I've ever had is when we hadn't been able to find water for a very long time, and we actually found some finally, and it was like, this is the best water I've ever had. The desire and longing actually increase satisfaction. But we live in a world today of instant gratification where we think we should never have to wait for anything. So this spiritual practice of fasting, of abstaining, of stopping, and of holding that desire. You know, back to C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis, one of his most famous quotes is that God finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. That we are half-hearted creatures. We are satisfied with things like drink and sex and money when God is offering us infinite, eternal joy. God finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. So what if we in spiritual practices began actually cultivating good desire which is oriented towards the end for which we have been created, for holiness, for conformity with the image of God? What if we began to cultivate our capacity to desire, as opposed to so much in the Christian tradition which demeans desire, which says that we ought not desire things? I think actually, like Lewis said, God finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We desire the wrong things. We desire noise. We desire to consume, not to enjoy, not to delight, perhaps.